We have many different ways of splitting up the past into time periods, and in turn giving those periods names. Some relate to cultural and technological advances, with periods in terms like the Renaissance and Age of Exploration, while others relate more to the geography and biology of the time, like the Jurassic period. What's great about many of these names is the fact they evoke such strong images with us today. The Renaissance has this image of breathtaking art and brilliant minds, while the Jurassic period conjures up wild jungles and a time when dinosaurs ruled the earth. Another way we have named and split up the past, however, is the titles and periods of the Metal Ages. The three Metal Ages are the Copper Age, Bronze Age, and Iron Age. But there's more to this, as there's also the Stone Age. The Stone Age, however, doesn't technically count as a Metal Age, as stone isn't a metal. But the Stone Age is often put together with the Bronze and Iron Age, with the Copper Age excluded, to become something called the Free Age system. This means we have the Metal Ages and the Free Age system, with there being overlap between the two of them. For this video, we're just going to cover all four of these ages. I have no idea if there's a collective term for all four of them. I'm tempted to call them the Mineral Ages, but I'm not sure if metals are even a mineral. Let's just call them the Metal Ages, and stone can be an honorary metal for today. These time periods relate to a very long time ago, as we shall see in a moment, but the concept of them is much newer. While people as far back as ancient Greece thought about categorizing the past into time periods based on materials, it was actually in just the late 19th century when the Free Age system as we know it today came into being. The concept was created by Danish historian / antiquarian Christian Jørgensen Thomsen. He came up with this concept when put in charge of the prehistorical objects collection belonging to a Copenhagen university. Through dating the objects, he realized that certain materials and building tools were more prevalent during certain time periods, which resulted in the Metal Ages we have today. These groupings explain the Metal Ages names, as they are all directly named after the key metal used during that time period. Like the Renaissance and Jurassic, they all have strong images too, from the primitive tools of the Stone Age, the ornate jewelry of the Bronze Age, to the weapons and armor of the Iron Age. It's truly fascinating that we are able to recount human history by looking at what precious metals they were able to plunder from the earth and how they used them. While these titles are well defined, what isn't as defined is when these actual periods of time took place. Different sources give different answers to when exactly these ages start and end. The general consensus, however, is as follows. The oldest of the four is by and far the Stone Age, which is thought to have started around 3 million years ago with very primitive humans and lasted all the way until around 3000 BC. From here we entered the Copper Age, which took place from around 3000 BC to around 2000 BC. The Bronze Age followed from 2000 BC to around 700 BC, and finally we had the Iron Age from 700 BC all the way until 1 AD. While called the Iron Age, this time period also saw some of the earliest uses of the metal alloy of steel too. These, as mentioned, are just rough estimates, and different sources will give you different numbers. Regardless, what we can agree on is that all these ages happened a very long time ago. For context, by the time Rome became an empire in 31 BC, the latest of the ages, the Iron Age, was already pretty much on the way out. The last of these ages ended over 2000 years ago, but human life has carried on, as has our use of metals. To this day, metals are some of the most important materials in our arsenal. We use metals in the same way our ancestors did in the past, for things like tools and weaponry and jewelry, but also in far more modern ways, for things like constructing way more advanced modes of transport, far more impressive machinery that runs on fuels those in the past could only dream of, and of course machinery has advanced into digital technologies like computers and smartphones too. It can be easy to forget things like phones and video game consoles all rely on metals excavated from the earth to exist, as they seem so far removed from things like an Iron Age sword or Bronze Age armor. But in certain ways, they are one and the same. Without a shadow of a doubt, we are still living in a Metal Age. The only question, however, is which one? Which metal could be used in the name of the age we are living in now? Well, there isn't really a definitive answer here. The last Metal Age was over 2000 years ago, and since then, we have decided to divide the past and our times in different ways. We have evolved beyond simply being defined via a metal we use commonly. What this all means is that historians, archaeologists, and the likes haven't come up with a metal-centric name for this time period which is universally agreed upon. This means that this video is more looking into hypotheticals than actual answers. I am just going to be sharing some of my own thoughts and musings on the matter, and applying a naming convention that has been historically used for time periods to the modern world we live in. The most obvious answer would be by simply looking into the metal that we use most today. After a search, it seems that the most widely used metal today is steel. Steel isn't a naturally occurring metal. It is instead a human-made alloy made from the natural metal of iron. Steel is incredibly strong, durable, and versatile. In our modern world, steel can be found all over the place, from something simple like a stainless steel kitchen knife to more extreme cases like in construction and transport. Steel is found all around us today and is a key building block of our modern world. The only issue is we've already kind of had a steel age. As mentioned, steel was part of the Iron Age, as steel is simply a product of iron. While steel is used a lot today, we have evidence of this alloy being used in the far past, with some of the earliest evidence coming from around 1800 BC. While steel is very much used in our modern world, it's not a particularly modern metal. Plus, the steel age just doesn't feel fitting for the 21st century to me for some reason. I can't fully articulate why, but it feels like a more fitting title for the 20th century, with its use in world wars and the construction of skyscrapers. A metal that feels a bit more modern, however, is aluminium. This is naturally occurring and is also the most abundant metal in Earth's crust. Yet despite all of this, it was only formally uncovered and used commercially in the 19th century. People have been using it in the past, but without fully understanding what it was. Today, it isn't used all that much on its own, but instead as an alloy. These aluminium alloys, however, are not only durable, but also incredibly lightweight, much more so than steel. This means that it's much easier to manipulate into different shapes too, and in our modern times, we have found all kinds of uses for it. Two of its most modern uses are in the creation of cans and as foil. These are incredibly modern. Cans often contain fluids and foods which have gone on to dominate the planet, and foil is used in all kinds of ways too, from wrapping up leftover food to some who cover their heads in the stuff so they can't listen in. It's also one of the key metals used in the construction of airplanes, thanks to how lightweight and durable it is. It really is a metal deeply linked with the big and small objects of our modern world, and the title of the Aluminium Age has a great ring to it. Aluminium is also used in computing too, and it's from here we may find a better answer. Computers and digital technology is perhaps the defining feature of the 21st century. The way we use computers now is one of the key things that separates this century from the ones that came before it. We did of course have computers and even the internet in the latter parts of the 20th century, but they weren't as abundant as they are now. Computers use all kinds of metals, with one of the more obvious ones being copper. Copper is used in the making of electric wires which power so much today, including computers. The issue here, however, is that we've already had a copper age, but I don't think they used copper then as we use it today. Other metals found in computing are ones that have wider uses like silver, gold and tin, but also metals like palladium, cobalt, zinc, and tantalum. All these metals are used in the construction of things like hard drives, capacitors, and CPUs. Without these metals, much of our modern world would fall apart. You wouldn't be able to check your emails, buy stuff online, or even watch this video without them. We could pick any of these metals to represent the age we're in now. If I had to pick one, I like the Palladium Age, as it's one of the more important metals in computing, and its name just sounds somewhat modern. What all of this shows us is that it's hard to place one metal as the single material that defines our modern world. So maybe we don't bother looking at a metal at all. Stone is an honorary metal in this video, remember? So why don't we just find another honorary metal for today? The obvious answer here is something like the Information Age, as that is commonly heard to describe today, but it's kind of boring. Plus, information isn't a tangible physical thing. If I'm breaking my own rules, I want it to at least be for something I can see and touch with my hands. For looking at tangible non-metals, we have a clear winner. Silicon. This metalloid, which according to Wikipedia means it's somewhere between a metal and a non-metal, has become one of the most important building blocks of today. It's used extensively in computing and technology, and is hugely abundant in the Earth's crust. It's become so deeply linked to the tech industry that the location of many tech giant HQs is known as the Silicon Valley. Silicon might very well be the physical material most deeply linked with the Earth today, even though it isn't quite a full metal. But let's go one step further away from actual metals while we're at it. Instead of using a physical metal to represent today, why don't we use a metal in a more metaphorical sense? We have used metaphorical metals all the time to reflect time periods, with the most common being the Golden Age. When someone says the Golden Age, they don't mean a time where gold was the most used building material. What they instead mean is that it was a time period of great success success and prosperity. For example, the reign of the Gupta Empire from the 4th to 6th century is seen as the Golden Age of India, and the 1930s to 40s is seen as the Golden Age of Hollywood. In some areas, we are definitely living in a Golden Age today, and in others, not so much. The thing about Golden Ages is that in many ways we aren't really aware they're happening until they're over. They can also come down to a person's own views. What one person might see as a golden age might definitely not be a golden age to another. And speaking of own views, I asked the people over on my Facebook group, Friends of Name Explain, for their takes on all this, and got some great responses. Lawrence said lithium, which is a great suggestion based on its use in electronics and batteries. Marie also suggested aluminium for the same reasons I did too, and Penny, Nicholas and Rainey all suggested silicon as well. My favourite suggestion, however, was by Veronica Karen, who went with a metaphorical idea and suggested rusty. This is a very clever play on the concept of metal ages, and we could be seen as living in a rusty/rust age, depending on your view on the world. What all this shows us is that despite the fact we haven't lived in a true metal age for millennia, they are still incredibly important things for us and how we live today. But I've gone on way too much about this, and my Facebook group shared their thoughts too. So why don't you share your ideas down below? What metal age do you think we are living in today? Name Explain depends on viewers like yourself supporting the channel financially on Patreon, so a huge thank you to everyone who does. Donating just $1 a month helps the channel amazingly and gets you bonuses including ad-free videos, exclusive content, the power to request ideas to be made into actual Name Explain videos, and your name at the end of the video with all these awesome people. Visit patreon.com/Name Explain or click the link down below to find out how you too can support the channel. Thank you. Thanks for reaching the end of the video. Why not watch another and subscribe to keep up to date on all things Name Explain. You can find myself on Instagram where I'm Name Explain YT, and join the Facebook group Friends of Name Explain to talk with myself and other name nerds. All that will be linked down below. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.